Batman, The Fallen, Gotham City, New Jersey, April 2020. This has been a trying year for Batman. This has also been a trying year for a lot of people with the problems going on around the world and Gotham City. But Gotham City has to deal with double the problem, not only from the plague, but also from the menacing tiger and the increasing police state tactics issued by the mayor and his new right-hand man, Professor Hugo Strange, the warden of the yet-to-be-open Arkham City. In a back alley somewhere in downtown Gotham, it was 11 p.m. and the police were there investigating. There investigating everything was none other than Harvey Bullock. Once again, with his toothpick in his mouth, he surveys the crime scene. It was a ritualistic murder, as the bodies were all mutilated and arranged in some sort of bizarre fashion. He says to himself aloud, "Oh boy, I've seen this before. Looks like that loony Deacon Blackfire's back in town." Then he walks over to his car and radios his finding to headquarters. "Tell the commissioner that the murders were ritualistic. They look like the handiwork of Deacon Blackfire." Then the commissioner proceeds to use the red bat phone in his office to call Batman, since it was getting to be very dangerous to call him via the bat signal, since Hugo Strange has Tiger hunting Batman down and also keeping direct tabs on the commissioner when he's meeting Batman. The commissioner grabs the phone and presses the only button on the center of the phone, and the phone goes off in the Batcave. Bruce Wayne grabs the phone. The phone's receiver has a built-in pitch shifter, so it can sound like his alter ego when he's talking to the commissioner, and he says,
"Yeah, Commissioner."
The commissioner goes on to explain the recent findings in the back alley, and, of course, Bruce Wayne goes on to say in his alter ego's voice,
"I figure he will strike again. It was a matter of when. I've been keeping tabs on him. He's been doing a number in the Caribbean,"
says Bruce Wayne in his alter ego's voice, and he goes on to explain to the commissioner further.
"For the last couple of years, he's been building up a new group of followers throughout South America and the Caribbean. And then he was last seen in Quebec, where he committed another group of murders. And then he entered the United States via Vermont with a forged Canadian passport under the alias of Robert Estwile back in mid-February."
The commissioner says, "I don't believe it. How come he waited this long to strike?" asks the commissioner to Batman. And, of course, Bruce Wayne replies back in his alter ego's voice,
"That's a mystery to me, too. And I've been keeping tabs on him, and he hasn't made any activity until tonight. He's been a very hard man to track down."
And then Bruce Wayne, looking at the display screen on the Bat computer, says in his alter ego's voice to the commissioner,
"I noticed something, Commissioner. All his victims in Latin America, the Caribbean, and the couple in Quebec were all doctors. I don't know why he was sacrificing doctors. And what I noticed throughout these pictures, that he seems to be sick. He gets progressively skinnier and gaunt looking with every picture I see from the last couple sightings. And his Canadian passport photo, he's very sick looking on there."
The commissioner says, "Really?" And Batman, of course, replied back, "Yes," and then informed him that he will keep the commissioner up to date on anything he's discovered. The commissioner says to him, "Well, good night, old friend. I'll talk to you tomorrow night." And he hangs up the bat phone. Then he was thinking. The commissioner thought hard and thought long, and then it struck him. I wonder if anyone has been reported missing in the medical field since Blackfire's been back in town. Then he gets onto the computer and types an email to the missing persons department to send him the files of anyone in the medical field doctor, nurse that has been missing since the beginning of February to now. Then after he was done, he sent the email and then shut down the computer and went home for the night. The next morning at Gotham PD, the commissioner comes in and does his morning routine of drinking coffee and looking through the emails and the faxes. When he looked through the emails, he saw the email from the missing persons department, and they sent him a surprisingly small list of one missing person only reported missing during that time period. It was a Dr. Russell Webster from Gotham General, an emergency room doctor that disappeared on March 16th of this year. And the detective who was assigned to the case was having no luck, according to the report, of finding him. Then there was a knock on the office door. Gordon says, "Come in." Then it was Bullock, and he says, "Hey, Commish, we identified the guys that they found in the back alley. Just a bunch of homeless guys." Then Bullock goes over their names, and he says to the commissioner, the only one who reported them missing was a local priest from a downtown mission, he says to the commissioner. Gordon says, that's weird. Why would Blackfire kill a bunch of homeless guys? Those are the ones he usually recruits into his cult. Bullock says, "You're right, Commissioner." Then he goes over the list of all their priors. And then he says the name of the priest who reported them missing is a Father Thomas Manowski, he says. Then the commissioner asks Bullock, "Any next of kin?" Bullock says negative. Then the commissioner says to Bullock, "Well, go down there, ask Father Manowski what he knows about what's going on with them and their connection, possibly the Blackfire. And since they have no next of kin, I'll just declare Manowski their next of kin and just break the news to him." Bullock says, "All right, Commissioner, you got it," and Bullock leaves the office. After Bullock leaves the office, the Commissioner writes a quick email to his friend, the Batman. Later that day, at the St. Benedict rescue mission for the homeless, Bullock was outside interviewing Father Manowski, and out there in the front of the mission was a line of homeless guys waiting to come in to eat, but due to social distancing, they had to stay a certain feet apart from each other, and only a limited number of them were allowed in the mission at one time. Well, as Manowski was explaining everything to Detective Bullock, unbeknownst to them, there was a homeless guy that was near them in line, and both men did not notice that that homeless guy had a wrist-mounted directional microphone. After Bullock was done interviewing Manowski, then the homeless guy that was in line near them walks off. As he walks off, he picks up the pace, and he starts taking off his fake beard and takes off the wig, revealing none other than Bruce Wayne in disguise. He gets into his car that was parked some ways down the road, and he listens to the digital recorder that had picked up the conversation between Bullock and Manowski, and he heard some key points of interest, namely a mission that pretty much sprung up overnight in the neighborhood called the Brotherhood of Christ Mission. Bruce Wayne knew that his alter ego had to pay a visit to that place tonight after his date with Vicky Vale. Well, later on that afternoon, Vicky and Jack Ryder were leaving the TV station, and they were heading to their cars. Their cars were parked next to each other in the parking lot. And Jack says to Vicky, "Date night tonight with the billionaire turned crusader against Arkham City, Bruce Wayne?" Vicky says yes as she lets out a smile. Then she gets into her car and gets ready to leave. And as Jack was opening his car, suddenly he heard someone behind him and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Ryder?" Jack turns around and says yes. Suddenly he was hit over the head with a club. And as Vicky was ready to pull out of her parking spot, suddenly a old Ford van pulls right up, blocking her. She hits the brake and puts the car in park. She rolls down the window ready to yell at the driver for doing that, and then she saw the van's side door fly open and several men come running out towards Jack Ryder's car, and then she sees that these men were hauling the unconscious Jack Ryder into the van. The side door shuts and the van speeds off. Vicky quickly runs out of her car to see if she can get the license plate, but the van did not have a license plate. She did quickly take photos from her smartphone. Then she calls the police to report the kidnapping. Then after that, she sends a quick text to Bruce Wayne to tell him that the date was canceled and the reason why. Meanwhile, at Wayne Manor, Bruce Wayne was getting ready for the date as he was putting on his necktie. Then Alfred comes into the room and he says, "Excuse me, Master Bruce, you have a text message from Miss Vale. She says, 'Dear Bruce, I'm sorry I had to cancel tonight's date. I'm a witness to a crime. Jack Ryder has been kidnapped.'" Bruce is like, "What?" Then he walks over to Alfred, and Alfred hands him his smartphone. He sees a text message, and he says to Alfred, "Well, Alfred, looks like I got lucky tonight. I don't have to go out with Vicky. Now I can get a head start on this case," he says. Bruce goes down to the Batcave and gets on the Bat computer. Kathy Kane, aka Oracle, was on vacation, so he had to do his own hacking. And he hacked in to the news station security camera where Jack and Vicky worked at. And he found the parking lot surveillance video, and he could clearly see that the van itself was an old Ford Econoline van from the mid-90s. And there was no license plate, so it was all but useless. And to top things off, the camera that picked up the whole thing was far away, and Bruce tried to zoom in on the faces of the men who kidnapped Ryder, but despite the multi-million-dollar software that he had, there was nothing he can do to clear up the faces of the men who kidnapped Ryder. But he did have the lead that he needed, the Brotherhood of Christ mission. So Bruce suited up and headed out. Brotherhood of Christ mission, 9 p.m. Batman arrives and he breaks into the mission. The mission was largely closed due to the lockdown. No one was allowed to stay the night in there, which was bad for the homeless. Well, Batman snoops around and he activates detective mode. Detective mode revealed 6 guys in the other room, and they were armed with knives. So Batman goes to the other room and kicks open the door. The men in the other room were frightened as they shouted out, "Oh dear God, it's him, the one that Blackfire spoke of, that servant of the devil, the Batman." Then Batman says to them with a stern warning,
Now, if you men value freedom of movement, I suggest you tell me where Blackfire's at.
Of course, the men didn't care and they pull out their knives and attack Batman, but Batman made short work of them. Then as Batman was going to ask them the question again, he heard the sound of searchlights turning on. The lights outside illuminate the darkened rooms, and Batman could hear someone on the bullhorn screaming, "Come out, Batman, with your hands up, and no harm will come to you." Batman knew who it was right away. It was Tiger. They found him. And he says in his mind, "Dang it." Then Batman says to the downed goons,
If you don't want to be in the hands of Tiger, whoever knows where Blackfire's at and the way out of here, better raise their hands.
One of the guys rose his hand slowly, and another of the goons said, "No, Sancho, don't betray him." Batman grabs the guy who raised his hand by the shirt collar and pulls him up, and soon Tiger storms the mission. They go around with military precision until they reach the back room, and there they saw the injured men lying on the ground except for one, and they saw a trap door that was wide open. The Tiger soldier who's leading the raid says on the radio, "Sergeant, sir, the target has escaped through an underground passage." And then the sergeant on the radio tells the soldier to take a small group of men into the passage, and that the men who are lying there injured are members of Blackfire's cult and to be brought outside by the rest of the team. Well, the Tiger guards do as they're told. Meanwhile, in a tall building in downtown Gotham, Batman was interrogating the man that volunteered to tell him everything as he was holding him by his broken legs and dangling him upside down over the edge of the building. The man looked in terror at the great height, and he says to Batman, okay, Blackfire is at the Lady of Gotham statue. He's going to sacrifice Ryder and that doctor. And then the crook goes on to say, Blackfire is dying. He's been dying for a while, and he believes sacrificing doctors and Jack Ryder will restore his health. Then Batman says to the goon,
Thank you. Now I'll leave you to the police.
The man says, but wait, you said you were not going to leave me to Tiger. Then Batman says to him,
Exactly. I said I will not leave you to Tiger, but I'm still going to leave you to the police.
Then Batman proceeds to knock the man out cold. Meanwhile, at the Lady of Gotham Island, at the foot of the Lady of Gotham statue, Gotham City's answer to the Statue of Liberty, Blackfire was there with his followers, and Jack Ryder and Dr. Webster were laying on the table tied up. As Blackfire had his ceremonial chalice and his ceremonial dagger, he was given a fiery sermon saying, Now, my children, it's the time of the end. This plague is a sign, and with the blood of these corrupt men, I shall be restored to health as proof of his power. And Blackfire goes on with his sermon, and once my health is restored and I'm given new power, I shall lead you all to safety until the time of Jesus' return, he says. And then the frenzied crowd began cheering and screaming. All of a sudden, a smoke pellet goes off in the middle of the frenzied crowd. Within seconds, a thick cloud of smoke envelops the entire audience, causing everyone to cough. Soon, Batman dives down, lands, and begins taking down everybody in Blackfire's cult. Afterwards, Batman quickly runs up the steps and cuts Jack Ryder and Dr. Webster free. Then the angry, dying Deacon Blackfire runs at Batman with the ceremonial dagger raised in the air, ready to stab him. Batman quickly overpowered him with no effort. Blackfire was so frail and sick that it was just a rather sad sight what he has been reduced to. And Batman quickly grabs his grapple gun and grapples out with Blackfire. Well, the police boats and Tiger came to rescue the two men, and they arrested all of Blackfire's followers. And as for Deacon Blackfire, Batman took him to some place and let him go. Deacon Blackfire was angry and confused, and he asked Batman, So, foul agent of the devil, why do you let me go? What, you know it's very bad to go against a holy man? You know of all the undue suffering that will cause you? Have you finally realized that, devil man? Then Batman answers him back.
No, Blackfire, I'm doing this for two reasons. Number one, to deprive you of a martyr's death. I know you wanted this all along. You wanted this for years. And number two, to prove to you that I'm not evil. Because I'm not going to let any of my enemies suffer in the hands of Tiger. They will make the last few remaining days for you a real living hell of pain and torment. You do deserve death. You've killed many people over the years. And like any cult leader, you destroyed lives and enslaved souls. But I know soon you're going to face a greater judgment. And just count your blessings, Blackfire, that you're not going to experience hell on earth that's being constructed at Tricorner Island.
After explaining everything to Deacon Blackfire, Batman grapples away. And then Blackfire begins to walk down the street, his head hung low, looking down at his own emaciated body. He looks at his hand and his arm, and it was pallid like a sheet. He knew he didn't have very long left. He could feel it. But now he also knew that Batman has defeated him. His worst enemy has defeated him by sparing his life and planting doubt in his mind with that speech. Well, a couple days later, Deacon Blackfire died peacefully in his sleep, related to his illness that he had been suffering with for years, thus bringing an end to one of Batman's deadliest enemies, and the only enemy that Batman was able to bring down with words. Like and subscribe, the end.